Happy Friday to anybody listening right now. Chuck, the comic guy. Another episode this week. I'm back on a roll. Got my rhythm back. I'm actually really super excited because on this episode, I have my very first interview with a very special guest, and he's going to break my interview skills in on this episode, and that will be Michael Rooney of Accendium, who I've been talking about in earlier episodes of Accendium Studios. So that will be coming up, but I wanted to start off by saying thank you to everybody who keeps me doing what I do, getting on here, talking comic books and movies and all the good stuff. And so thank you for people on my social media, been commenting and leaving feedback and all that. I will always thank you, no matter how many times I have to thank you. Thank you. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Substack, YouTube, and Spotify. You're likely listening to me on one of those two platforms. So if you're not following me, give me a follow and just give me all your input, feedback, comments. I love it all. So thank you there. And I also want to recognize 3 things of this month. So, anybody who says June doesn't have anything going on compared to all the other months like 4th of July or Christmas or Thanksgiving, we've got Juneteenth, which is officially today. Pride Month is still going on, and Father's Day is this weekend. So it's a very busy, for as little holidays that get recognized as big as the big holidays, this is a busy weekend altogether. And so to fathers out there, happy Father's Day. I hope that if you're a father into collecting comic books, that you get whatever issue that your family wants to give you as a gift, or if you find a way to make it to the comic book store this weekend as a gift to yourself, then that's what I'm going to attempt to do myself. And then Pride Month is still going strong, LGBTQ community. Thank you if you're listening. And Juneteenth is the African-American holiday of freedom where they abolished slavery finally in 1865 in Texas. And to anybody that doesn't think that's as widely recognized, I mean, it's getting more momentum and steam. I was actually out and I seen a group of people wearing Juneteenth T-shirts and celebrating it their own way. So that's really awesome. I'm glad that gets recognized as well. So anybody that affiliates with the 3 major holidays of this weekend, I hope you're enjoying them to your fullest. It's also been a busy news week of McFarlane. 2 McFarlanes are in the news for comic book related stuff, which is just kind of funny and coincidental at the same time. I'll start off with Todd McFarlane. He had posted to his social media, he posted Instagram, at least that's where I caught it, but I think it's probably elsewhere like Twitter or whatever, that he was playing pickleball with Jamie Foxx. And he said he's a pretty great pickleball player, and he teased that the pickleball racket had a Spawn logo on it, and they were posing together like, we got something up our sleeves. And that was their teaser of Jamie Foxx. It's not official, but it's very highly teased that he's going to be our next Spawn. And that'll be cool because there's been so many people that want to do the Spawn film justice. I'm sure Todd McFarlane wants to first and foremost. So, because the original film, I watched it and it was tough. I mean, it was not for the time period that it came out in. It just wasn't. Had they had the technology or some of the writers that we have now that do a little bit more. I mean, it was kind of like accurate to the comic book and being kind of weird, but otherwise it wasn't really a good adaptation at that time, and the timing of it just wasn't really good at all. But it just, it was weird. So some people may really enjoy it anyway because they got to see a live action Spawn film. Hopefully we get a better version. It's just like, it's like He-Man, like you wanted He-Man so bad, then you get it and you're like, ugh, that's what we get. And then you get the new He-Man, and it's better received and more technology and more budget to it. And Todd is just, I know he can make this thing work now in these parameters, because Spawn came out at the height of like when Image was kind of like really hitting their mark on everything. And it was just kind of like, well, now let's rush a film out for the sake of rushing a film out to keep the momentum going for Image. That might not have been the actual reason why they had to do it that way, but it just kind of seems like that's the way it probably did go. And that's the product that we got wasn't like we wanted it to be. So, and then the other McFarlane news is Dungeon Crawler Carl, say that 3 times fast, is going to get it said live action. Now, I don't know if I'm sure that means live action, but then again, live action is live action, but does that mean it's still going to be kind of like an animated series somehow? I'm sure it's going to be live action, as in live role players. So Seth MacFarlane, and no relation to Todd McFarlane, totally 2 different spellings on their last name too, in case you were wondering. He has his Fuzzy Door Productions that's going to put out Dungeon Crawler Carl on the Peacock Network that he's kind of affiliated with. So it's greenlit, and I kind of felt like this was coming, honestly. Dungeon right now, and this is a great tie-in to what the overall theme of this podcast for tonight is. So Dungeon Crawler Carl has a book, and then it's got a comic line, and it just seems like it's hitting all the marks at the perfect time. And because the comic books are kind of making like a nice, they're just kind of hitting at the right moment right now. I don't want to say comeback. They're kind of in a really nice period of, we're getting some really great stories. We're getting some really great writers. We're getting some really great art. And Dungeon Crawler Carl, when the new free comic book day came around, that was the one that people were like, I got to get the free comic book version and see what it's about. And so it definitely got some attention, drew some attention to itself. So Seth MacFarlane, I think he could do a really good job with this, and that'll be interesting to see. I actually have completely dropped the ball on that series, and it should be right up my alley because Dungeon Crawler Carl just seems like, I don't know what the story's about. I'm sure it obviously lends itself to D&D or some sort of fantasy gaming of some sort. So I've been so focused on other things that it's been tough for me to get my bearings straight on other directions. I've already kind of discussed that in the last couple of weeks. And plus it's just been like, go to a comic book store and try to find issue 1. Good luck. I mean, it's been kind of sold out everywhere, so I'm sure they're going to work on a second printing, or who knows. I don't know how that's going to play out, but it definitely is. It's just that like lightning is striking at the right moments, or lightning in a bottle, I guess is the best analogy I'm trying to make. And yeah, what perfect timing that we get 2 McFarlanes in the news for comic book related stuff. Moving along, it's an honor to welcome my very first guest to the podcast, Michael Rooney of Accendium Studios. Welcome to the podcast.
Happy to be here, Chuck.
Awesome.
How's your day going?
It's just beginning, I guess. It's too early to say, and it's still pretty late. So I just wanted to start off that when I first started my social media account and going through it and finding just random creators and content creators, I was doom scrolling. They say doom scrolling's horrible for you, but in this case, it led me down this path, and I discovered Accendium Studios on Instagram, and that's how I discovered you and all the work that you've been doing with Accendium Studios. And so I was really excited to make this opportunity happen, and I ordered the Venator book, and I read that, and then I went on and watched your Cedric and Alysia movie on Amazon, which was a really great watch. And so I'm very stoked to have you here. And I just wanted to start off by saying, in the spirit of all things comics, what is Accendium's origin story?
Yeah, sure. It's funny you mentioned the movie, because that's technically where Accendium's origin story really begins. So I am one of those unfortunate graduates who finished college the year of 2020. So I went to film school at Belmont University, and I remember it was spring break. The school was in Nashville, but I lived in Connecticut at the time. And I remember I went back for spring break, and they told me, hey, COVID just happened, so don't come back. And I was like, oh, I see. All right. So this is my base now. Yeah. And I ended up just finishing college at home. And during that time, I was so incredibly bored and was so driven to still make some movies that I decided to get together with a bunch of my friends who all have a passion for fantasy just as I do. Mm-hmm. And we all decided that we were going to film a web series because that's something we could actually do with a low budget. Well, eventually that web series kept, I like to call it the snowball effect, where it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we kept getting bigger locations. We ended up getting the Chris Mark Castle, which is this incredibly extravagant castle that's in the middle of the woods in Connecticut. Mm-hmm. And so we were able to get that. And then we ended up getting permission to shoot at the Hammond Castle up in Massachusetts. So now once we had those locations, I think we really just decided together as a group of people to say, well, actually, maybe this isn't just a web series. Maybe we do a whole feature film here. We've got these incredible spots. We've got a whole dedicated team. What do you say we give that a shot? And so after the next couple months of pre-production, we put together our own feature film. We did a Kickstarter, raised $25,000 off of that, and got some other money from personal investors and things like that. And it was obviously a very shoestring budget for a fantasy film, but I'm really proud of what we're able to make. We shot the whole movie in 10 days, and that's kind of what birthed our whole company. I realized that this world that I had written, it was really just a fantasy world written for the movie, so that we didn't have to actually do a lot of research into medieval history to find specific people in specific countries. I was like, I don't think we're really going to make this work with this particular castle. Yeah. So we basically just made our own fantasy world. And after doing that movie, I absolutely fell in love with the characters and the world. And so I started diving into it and really digging and building. And that's been the last couple of years of my life. I decided that we're going to make this company a fantasy company that makes chivalrous stories. Those are the types of stories that inspired me as a child. Mm-hmm. And so that's the type of stories that I want to spread. I want to make the world a little bit of a better place by telling one good story at a time. And here we are. That was our long-winded origin story. Oh, no. And now we're making books and comics and everything. We're even working on a board game right now.
Wow. Yeah. And that's funny because that was my next question, was how everything, the process and the producing, but that you pretty much covered it just in that origin story alone. And I went and watched, as soon as I saw that you had a movie on, it's on Amazon. Anybody can watch it right now. I recommend that you do, if anybody listening. And I was really shocked because I think of people that come out of nowhere and start a production company, and they say they come out with a film. It's usually different genres like horror, and they go out there and they put out some film, and it just looks like, you can tell it's not of a very good budget. And yeah. I was really shocked at how well you put that together, and hearing now the process in which it just started off from this web series. I would never have thought that that's where it actually came from, because it's really well done for just coming out of, like you said, just being kind of the birth of your studio. So I definitely recommend it to anybody that has a love for fantasy. I love fantasy adventures and tales, and it's a really great watch. So, very, very applauded of that. So,
I very much appreciate it. I thank you for the high praise. It's, as a first film, I think Ron Howard once said it, that no matter how much you put into a movie, it's always going to end up breaking your heart a little bit. Mm-hmm. But this one is something that, as a first film, I'm incredibly proud of. Obviously, you can see in certain areas, they didn't have $2 million for all of, the reshoots and everything. But with what we had, there's some really great talent in there. Some of the actors that we got to work with: Nexus Lyons, Caroline Codd, Justin C. Schilling, Noah Clark. There's a lot of really great talent in there. Yeah. And it was an absolute blast to make it alongside them, because they really brought this world to life. And it's a very good time getting to make that.
Awesome. So the one thing I was really intrigued by is that not only do you make movies, but you also have comic books and novels. And being the comic book podcast and a person that loves comics, I saw Venator, the cover just reached out to me. I thought I should read, there's not very many fantasy driven comic books anymore. There used to be kind of a big market for it back in the 70s and 80s, and it just kind of tapered off where it was more about superheroes. And so it's nice to get a little bit of a refresher back into the fantasy world of comics. And so I was just curious, how did you and artist Ryan Gutierrez come together to get the first issue published?
Yeah, of course. So funny enough, it was in the middle of when I was writing the comic, I saw on Instagram Ryan's page. And Ryan is also a self-published comic book artist and writer as well. And he had just come out with his first graphic novel, Black Marrow, and then he was even showing some teasers for this newest one that he's about to do called Knights of Camelot. And I saw the incredible, awesome, artwork that he did for King Arthur, and said, that guy looks so cool. Wow. I had to reach out to him and say, hey, your stuff is awesome. Where can I read it? I bought a copy of his first book. I loved it. I thought the artwork was incredibly dynamic. I don't think I'd ever seen somebody do action quite as good as Ryan does. Mm-hmm. And so after reading that, I just had to work with him, and I reached out and said, hey, I'm working on this comic. This is the story. This is the character. What do you think? And it was a godsend that Ryan really latched onto the story and the character as well. Mm-hmm. And so we've been working on that. I think it's been literally a whole year since we first started working together. So it took a whole year for us to make our Ashcan and issue number 1, and then issue number 2, which is coming out in just a few weeks.
Awesome. Yeah. And when I was going through it, I mean, I received a copy, and I was just, okay, let's dig into this and get and Isaac, the Fiend Slayer, is just a great character for this book. And just the layouts, I mean, just the way that he does layouts for a fantasy themed comic is kind of almost like it's the same kind of layout structure you get out of a normal just superhero book, but it's more like it's just it flows together so well. And like you said, his art is really phenomenal. And I mean, it's great to get kind of a nice, fresh, set of art out there in the comic book world, because it just seems like I've come across so many comic books that seems like it's too cartoony or too much like this, and it's kind of dialed back a bit to where it's more like the old fantasy books of the past, but coming back to the forefront in the future. So that's, I can't wait to get a hold of issue number 2. So, I
mean, bringing, fantasy back from tradition to a modern day era. I mean, that's kind of what we're doing. It's, we're not simply taking off of modern fantasy. We're taking some of the classics and putting our own spin on them. I remember, that's kind of what Indiana Jones actually was. I remember hearing an interview that Spielberg and Lucas said, we want to make a classic adventure story and take some of those elements, but make it our own. And that's kind of what birthed Indiana Jones. And to us, it feels like a classic, but to them, it was, hey, we're bringing back the classics. Yeah. And it's just so funny that is kind of how it goes. And for us, it's the same way. There's a lot of great stories that I grew up reading. I love Lord of the Rings, Chronicles of Narnia. I read so much and played so much Warhammer as a kid. It was ridiculous. So, a lot of those things kind of brought together. I spent a lot of time in, reading the Word. I'm very invested into the Bible and biblical mythology. I just think it's so exciting, so interesting. And so all of those together, I think, combined to bring some classics and a little bit of a modern spin on it. Mm-hmm. Being Michael Rooney and Ryan Gutierrez, who are living in the 21st century, that's just, we can only do so much that's traditional without being, losing ourselves.
Yeah. And there's a big kind of like, it's making a comeback, the whole fantasy. I mean, it's been kind of working its way up since you said like Lord of the Rings and, all those films. And I'm trying to think of the other one. I can't think of the other one that's big on HBO right now. It's
no, the Knight of Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different. And I mean, it's even just on the cusp of it is even like Harry Potter with all the wizardry and things like that. It's like kind of in a Renaissance period where it's kind of coming back, and more people are embracing it more, because back in the day it used to be like you get Conan and all these other heroes of that time, and then there was a little bit of a gap in between, and now there's this like resurgence of it. And so it's awesome, like you said, a little bit of the classic, a little bit modern, and it's a nice combination of both. And so with that being said, you with issues of Venator, you said that you want to work onto a trade paperback down the road. And have you ever thought about doing other comic titles that branch away from the Venator comic line?
So we are definitely going to make a trade paperback. This I'd like it to be an ongoing series. I'd like this one to go on for as long as we can think of stories of it. And I have the next two, big arcs of Isaac's story already set. So I imagine we're going to be following Isaac the Fiendslayer for quite some time, as long as we can keep people interested and excited with the story, which I think we can. Mm-hmm. We're actually doing pretty good so far. For an indie comic, our comic's only been out for a couple weeks, and we've already sold several hundred copies. Wow. So I cannot complain. It's been nothing short of a blessing to be where we are right now. And like I said, we sell more every day. In fact, just today I was at another comic store here in California, dropping off some more copies because people are interested. They actually it was a store called Comic Quest, and they ran out of the copies that we gave them, and I just had to come and drop off some more. Wow. So, but yeah, it's going to be exciting to continue his story. And whilst I don't know necessarily if the Venator series will follow other Venators, but I do imagine that this world, we refer to it as the chivalrous epics, and this world has so many stories to tell that without a doubt there will be more comics in this world. Whether or not they're going to be, in the next year or two, probably not. We're probably going to be sticking with Venator to be like our main train to build our little comic empire. But we do have more in the future that are planned.
Awesome. Can't wait. So I have to appreciate the value in making a statement on the inside of Venator about no artificial intelligence being used in the making of Venator, which it's a great statement to make. What types of concerns or thoughts do you have about the world of AI just being more in the forefront of the media industries?
That is a big question right there. I could say this. A very wise saint by the name of Paul once put it that I have the right to do anything, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do everything, but not everything is constructive. We're still in the infancy of artificial intelligence, so while I cannot say with certainty that it is wholly an evil, I know my conscience, and my conscience has led me to refrain. I'm an artist. I run a company built by the sweat and craftsmanship of artists. Yep. And it's a creative endeavor backed by the spirit of intentional creatives. And AI is artificial. It is undisciplined, and it's inhuman. By its very nature, it's kind of everything against why I built my company in the first place. Yeah. And so, the stories at Accendium, they're chivalrous at their heart. They're filled with great knights and heroes alike to those of old. And with chivalry, there comes a demand for artisanal self-discipline in all that you do and all that you stand for. And to me, to offer the agency of AI in my craft is kind of the lesson my own hand in my own work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm guilty. I will be the first to admit that I am guilty of falling into the trap of AI when I started this thing, because it was just a matter of a convenience, and it's kind of like
so convenient.
Yeah. It's unfortunately convenient because I think back to my old design school days when I was using Photoshop and Illustrator and thinking, geez, this is how did we get to this point where you can use this instead of just doing everything old school? And then it felt like, well, that was very pushed into a designer's face, is to use the computer software, which we've well embraced now. But now it's this is just a cheat code to that. And I mean, I'm now veering away from it. I've been trying my best in the last couple weeks to start, because it seems like it's really, between things like data centers and all the other things that are starting to kind of come down the pipe of how this is going to have maybe a more of a negative impact than is a positive impact. I'm just trying to stray away from it and get more back to, just grassroots design and create my own thing. So I've been doing my due diligence, but I still got a long way to go to separate myself from it. And so, yeah, it's great that, that I love your take on that. And it's definitely, there's not enough perspectives right now from the art community yet that have really kind of put it into this way you described it, because I've even heard Todd McFarlane lately that he's pretty much embraced it and he's using it as
I watched that interview and I love Spawn. I was going to say on my what's it called, I've got some booths that we do at Comic-Cons and Ren Fairs, and right next to Venator says, if you're a fan of Spawn or Dark Souls, you're going to love this. Yeah. So it was interesting to see Todd McFarlane talking about that, and I heard his perspective. I'm not going to say that some of the points didn't make sense. To me, it's everything. Like I said, there's a lot of instances that have caused me to pull back and say, nope, I don't think that's for me. There's something about it. There's a gut feeling that I've always had about it that I've pulled away, and a lot of people like that, like I know Christopher Nolan, even my dad, he works with a lot of people. He doesn't use social media, and everybody used to come to him and say, oh my goodness, it's the future. You got to use it. And he's like, no, I'll be okay. I'll be just fine. And doing it the way that I can do it. And you know what? Some people can do it. And you know what? I think it's inspiring to see people who don't need it. And as it's very difficult in the art community, especially because AI came for art first. A lot of people said that, oh, it's here to, help with, medical diagnosis. It's here to help write your emails. And very quickly it came for all of art as a whole. It's like, hey, remember you used to make music on your own? Now don't bother. Just have the robot do the music for you. And I was like, yeah, but making music is fun. Making art is fun. It's exciting, and it brings people in because there's a human element of creativity that you want to see when you experience art. So, like I said, it's I can't say that it's wholly evil right now, but I can't say that I'm about to partake in it at all. No. And I would encourage other people not to do the same. I would encourage them to hold their ground and wait for the barrage of sellers to die down before you make your decision.
Yeah. And if I had Todd, if I can't draw for anything to save my life. That's the only reason why I use it. If I had Todd's talent, I'd be like, wow, I don't need this thing. I wouldn't even endorse it because I have that talent, So, I mean, more power to him. I get where he was coming from. Like you said, it just, I guess it kind of now puts in this whole, there's a lot of people that have really kind of come back at him for it. And it sucks for him to kind of take that heat, but he was trying to make a pretty pragmatic statement about it. And it kind of came off a little tone deaf to some people. So, but hey, thank you for your take on that. And so I'm going to,
of course, I mean, Todd's his own man, he's going to make his own decisions and live by them. And whether they help him in the end or hurt him in the end, that's his right and his path to do.
Yeah.
And, obviously there is a lot of, heat that he's taken, but, that's just how it is to be a human and put your perspectives out there. Yeah. And I'm sure even this right here, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of tech bros that come after me and say like, oh my goodness, you don't use AI. How dare you? You caveman.
Yeah. So I wanted to say, because back to the fantasy aspect of things, I'm a huge Dungeons and Dragons player. I've been for many years, different variations between 2nd Advanced and now 5th and 5.5 and whatever. So do you ever carve out enough time to get into tabletop campaigns like D&D or anything that you play like that?
I'll tell you this. I really respect what D&D is, and I did used to have a lot more time to do it. I have since run out of time to play D&D as much as I used to. Maybe I'll join a one-off every once in a while because it can be a lot of fun. Yeah. But for me, it's funny. I should absolutely love it. D&D is so slow. It is so slow, and sometimes it kills me how slow it is. And I played Warhammer growing up. That's a slow game too. But D&D is even slower. And for me, I was always like, I need to get to my turn quicker, because I would always play a paladin and I would just go, all right, fire sword and swing. Oh, I hit. Okay, cool. And then it would take 30 minutes to get to my turn because all my friends would play mages and have to pick their spells. And I got so bored. Maybe it's just because I played a paladin with a bunch of mages, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah. And I'm currently a 6th level paladin. It's funny because our group, we've been, the joke, I think, amongst many D&D groups is, what level are you at? And then they'll say, oh, cool, you must have been playing for, they'll try to guess your age of time playing. And so I'm currently, our group's a level 6, and we've been playing for 3 years. So,
yeah, only 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, my one of our players said to someone, oh, we've been playing for 3 years. And the person's like, oh, you must be level 15 by now. And it's like, nope, because it's always tough. The running joke for any D&D campaign is getting the time to get together with everybody's schedule, depending on the size of party. And we just, when we get together, it's a blast. It's just tough finding that time to get together with, we're all adults with lives and everything. So, but I also, a Paladin is like, I would always just do the basic fighter or whatever. And then I was like, let's mix it up with a Paladin. And
you ever see those memes where it's like, there's a million different races to choose from in our fantasy game, and then it's like me picks the knight human paladin every single time. That was me too. I would see those and go, yep, that was curated exclusively to me.
Yeah, there's about a dozen memes that you can scroll across, and you just feel like they're talking about you right behind your back. So I'm going to close this out with, what inspires your creative mindset in the world of fantasy storytelling?
That's a good question. I'd say I take a lot of inspiration from my own world. There's so many interesting things happening day in, day out in my own life or just the life of the world. And so I use that to drive the characters. I use that to drive the emotions and the feeling for the story, to then kind of dress that in a fantasy setting. Takes a lifetime of having known what goes into fantasy, having read a lot of books, having done a lot of history. I would take classes in college on Icelandic mythology, on just medieval history, Roman history, Greek history, East Asian history. A lot of these things, I just got attracted to the idea of a time that things, I can say certain things were simpler. And I think that the way that people lived their lives back then were defined more so by their actions than ever before. Mm-hmm. I think nowadays people can live behind a screen, and it's a little easier to live your life without actually participating in the world. Whereas in days when there wasn't that kind of technology, there wasn't that kind of safety net, I think people had to live every second of the day with whatever they were doing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, that's one of the things that made me interested in it. And I also just think it's incredibly cool. Like I said, I grew up, reading the Bible. I grew up reading Lord of the Rings and every sort of fantasy, even sci-fi book that I could pick up. And I was just very attracted to the idea of heroes and of chivalry. That's what drove me to take this genre as the forefront of my work.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I miss... It's very cool, like you described, where it is stripping everything down to kind of this like very simple way of living, even though it wasn't simple, because there were so many things in at least in the fantasy realm that even though they didn't have technology to help them out, and they still had all these very basic ways of living, you still had to like worry about the battles and your castle would be taken over, or dragons, or like any kind of magic and things involved with that. So it's a very interesting world, and I love it as well, man. So I appreciate what you're doing. And for anybody that wants to check out Michael's work, you just go to, just repeat the website for me because I don't have it in front of me. I know it's Accendium Studios.
It's Accendium Studio, AccendiumStudiosLLC.com. That's where you can find our whole catalog. We have our collector's edition DVD, Venator, the Ashcan, our latest novel, Trials of the Vigilant. That's pretty cool. And then everything else we release will be on there, as well as in certain stores across the states. We're in a couple states right now, California, New York, and Connecticut, and then more and more each week or so.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to what you got coming up down the pipe, and thank you for your time and appreciate it, and hope we can make this happen again.
It's a pleasure, Chuck. I'm really, really glad you brought me on.
Awesome. Well, have a great night.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks. So glad that Michael Rooney was able to join and get that interview in, and I thank you to Accendium Studios for existing and making that moment happen. And again, everybody, get out there and support your indie creators. I can't emphasize that enough. You just never know what you're going to get that gets bumped up the charts and becomes an awesome adventure story or creation for an indie comic creator to come out there and create something that we've seen so many different books in the past that have just come out of nowhere, and now they're awesome and we can't live without them. And it can't always be dominated by the big three. Obviously, I love Marvel, DC, and Image, but there's so many other great studios out there. So I definitely urge that you get out there and support them. And if you can find a way to get Accendium Studio books or comics in your stores or your market, reach out to your comic book owners or stores and just tell them, look, I hope that you can carry this because I'd love to support this creator, and I'd love to be able to come in here and get it at my convenience where it's nearby, instead of having to maybe go to a website or go to a third party or whatever. It'd just be great to have it right here and streamline the whole sequence of events. So until next time, my social media again is Chuck the Comic Guy on Instagram, TikTok, Substack, YouTube, and Spotify. And thank you again. Till next time, see ya.
Let's cut out of here.